In this report, I will share the biggest problems slow travelers face. I received a list of questions from one of my lifetime members of Vagabond Buddha, and they are questions you should all hear the answers to. I'm not telling you that I have the best way to solve each of these problems, but I have faced these problems personally, and this is how I have solved them. But we have hundreds of experienced slow travelers that follow this channel and share how they handle slow travel problems. So make sure to read the comments under this video to get more ideas to choose from. I'm sure my solutions will evoke a lot of other thoughts. But I'm not guaranteeing that any method used by me or others in the past will work for you in the future. Past experience does not guarantee future results. So the risk is on you if you decide to use any of these presented on this channel. Here are the ideas we talk about in this report: how to stop banks from shutting down your accounts when you slow travel for months or years overseas, how to get your American phone number to ring on your smartphone without paying international rates, how to use WhatsApp to communicate with locals, and how to get a local style apartment cheaper than Airbnb. I will answer all these in a moment, but here are a few more questions I just received from someone that has not traveled at all. I will answer these first. What camera equipment do we use? We are presently using a GoPro Hero 8 Black for video and an iPhone 12 for photos. Our drone shots are with the DJI Mavic Mini. For audio, I have the Rode Wireless Go 2. I don't know how to, the next question, I don't know how to change a SIM chip in my phone. They have local SIM chips at almost every international airport or land border crossing in the world. Just Google the service providers in the country before you cross or arrive in a country, so you'll know the company names to look for when you arrive. You'll know the logos. The salesperson will change the chip in your phone for you. Just point at the plan you like and hand them your phone. The plans are always in English and the local language. So just read which plan you want, point at it, hand them your phone, and they'll change it for you. This was interesting. How do I order a beer, ask for the bathroom, or ask what something costs when I first arrive in a country where I don't know any of the local languages? Now this I do in countries where there's really no tourist areas, where there's just no English spoken. I've used this technique from time to time. I call it a translation table. So I make a table of simple phrases with English on the left side, and on the right side of the table, I put the local translations of each of those English phrases. After you populate the table with English phrases you want, whatever they are, I'd like a beer, please. Where's the bathroom? Is there a grocery store near here? Any of the phrases you're going to use, then use Google Translate and paste the local language phrase next to the English phrase. Then print the table out in paper and carry it with you in case you don't have connectivity when you need it. Point at the phrase you want the person in the foreign place to read adjacent to your English phrase, and just point at it when you need something. I often find English-speaking people as I wander around the world, but this helps if you get in more rural areas or countries where there just isn't much tourism yet. The other choice is to use live Google Translate. Really, it's the same application. You can use it on your phone. Just make sure to get an in-country SIM card. That's where you speak in English, and Google just speaks the translated words out loud in the local language in real time. Practice this before you try to use it. But you just pick up your phone, you hit the Google Translate button, you speak into the phone, you let up on the button, and it speaks back in the local language. Some people will say in the notes below this video that you need to learn the local language before you go to a country. I call BS on that. I've been to 67 countries and had a really great time. Those countries literally had hundreds of languages. If I only traveled to countries where I spoke the language, I would probably functionally need to know like 20 languages. No, thank you. I just try to learn enough phrases over time so I can be polite. And then I hack my way through life in all the countries I go to by using these kinds of tricks. Um, so I say just go and learn what you need on the slow travel world highway and use your wits and creativity as you go. Even some pantomime from time to time will get you through a situation. That is a more realistic plan, in my opinion, if you plan on being a slow traveler. Otherwise, you're just stuck to countries where you speak the language. I call BS on that. Okay, how do I order street food if there's no menu and I don't speak the local language? And that's not unusual. Certainly in the cheaper countries, food isn't as highly regulated, and often the street food is some of the best, and the locals know where to find it. So only eat street food that the locals are lining up to eat. That means it is a good and the price is right. It probably also means it's fairly healthy, or they wouldn't be going back over and over again. Watch until a local is handed some food that you like. Then point at the food the cook just handed to the local at the food cart. Then point at the phrase in your translation table that says, "How much is that food?" Then hand them a calculator to show you how much to put in, how much, or have them write it on a piece of paper that you have, or just watch how much money the local handed the cook. Give them the thumbs up when you agree on the price, or point at the phrase in the translation table that says, "Yes, I would like that," in the local language. This might sound crazy to you, but people love it. The locals love it that they're communicating with some foreigner in this way, and they can see that you're trying, and the locals that are happy to do this. I haven't received any pushback from using these techniques. So how do I find a bathroom? You remember, this is when you're in a country, you just don't know any words. So you walk into a restaurant, a grocery store, or the other establishment and point at the phrase in the translation table. Now, you can first ask, "Do you speak English?" And that will not be unusual for them to say yes or very little, and you can just try talking to them. Or you can, if they say no, or they shake their head, or they don't know what you're saying, then you just point at the phrase in the translation table. "Is there a toilet nearby?" They'll point in the direction if they have one, or down the street if they don't. Walk that way and ask another person. Or just look for the international sign for the bathroom. A lady with a dress or a man with pants. They're usually in blue and white, and they're standing next to each other, and then look for the signs on the doors. Okay, what mosquito repellent do you use? I have a whole video on how to not get dengue or malaria. By the way, everything I'm sharing with you is on a link below this video, so you don't have to take notes. That link takes you to a web page on vagabondbuddha.com. That's our web page. That web page has all of these resources in the same order I'm talking about here in this video. So there's more detail on that web page about all of these ideas, including a link, the top 11 tips to stop dengue and malaria. I have a whole video on that. Next question, do you use credit cards or cash to pay for big expenses in foreign countries like your rent and utilities? Okay, I use cash for everything except any online bookings like flights and Airbnb. On the ground in a foreign country, I use the local cash. When you're slow traveling the world, if your credit card gets hacked because someone got their hands on it or got the information off it, it's a bigger problem to get it replaced. It has to be internationally overnighted to you. And I've had that happen a couple times, and I don't like doing that anymore. So instead, I just get money out at ATMs. So the fewer people that have access to your credit card information, the better. So I only use my credit card online to buy flights and bookings, like on Airbnb and that sort of thing. But I have a full, so I get local cash out via an ATM, and I use that cash to pay for everything. Now, when it's coming up on rent, maybe you'll have to make a few deductions over a few days if the amount of money you're getting out is more than you can get out per day. So just think about that in advance. Now, I have a full report on how I handle international banking issues, so make sure to review that too. Talks more about these concepts. Again, that's on the webpage And that's called Top Banking Mistakes I Learned Living Internationally. Okay, now this is an important one. I got just a few emails or a few comments on YouTube videos over the few days, and it's how do I stop banks from shutting down your accounts when you slow travel for months or years overseas? Okay, first of all, I have to tell you this has not happened to me, and it's probably because of how I set things up before I left the US. Now, again, I recommend that you start by reading that Top Banking Mistakes report, but I'm going to talk more specifically about why I think accounts get shut down. And then, after the 9/11 occurrence in the US, banks, starting about 3 to 5 years after that, they started requiring physical addresses on bank accounts instead of like PO boxes. They wanted your street address. And so if you're like me and you're going to travel the world, you're not going to leave an empty bed anywhere in the world. So you need a street address. And so what I recommend you do is you get a street address in the same city and definitely the same state where you're a resident in your home country. And the reason is it's because assuming that's the state you're going to be filing your taxes in, it's also true that your tax returns, and some governments require your tax returns to have a street address. And so your tax return should be the state that you're residing in. And so what does that mean? That means that even if you maintain or own real estate, but you're not going to be receiving your mail there, someone has to receive a letter when it comes. So I recommend using a friend or a family member in the state where you live, but you don't want to overload them with a bunch of your emails. So what you do is you go to all of your accounts and you turn them into paperless. So bank accounts, any bills you get, cancel all your magazine subscriptions, monitor for a few months before you leave any bills that you get, and make sure and go online and open up accounts and go paperless. It's called going paperless. And they'll email you once a month or whenever they need something, because you're paperless, and your friend whose address or your family member is not getting all this email for you. You don't want to turn them into a secretary. And once in a while, if they do get a letter, then they can just if it's not junk mail, just throw away the junk mail. But if they get a letter of some kind, have them open it, take a picture of it, and email it to you. And wherever you are in the world, you check your email, you'll see it, thank them for doing that, and then contact that organization and try to get them to go paperless. And over a few months or years, eventually, you'll probably only start getting 1 or 2 snail mails per month. I sometimes go a full month without getting any. Okay, the other thing that I recommend you do is that before you leave your country, you change your driver's license so that your mailing address is on your driver's license. Because once in a while, a bank, when you open a new account, or you get a PayPal account or a business account, or you try to do something online, they're going to ask for proof of who you are, and the street address you use has to match. Now, you're still going to ask them to go paperless, but they're going to want some physical proof. And the best way to do that is to take a picture of your driver's license and email that to them, or upload it on their webpage to prove that that's your address. So change your driver's license also, and then don't use a friend that moves every 6 months. You want a family member or a friend who's very reliable, they haven't moved in 5 or 10 years, they're just steady people, and that you trust them, obviously. Now, some state governments require a street address, so that'll solve that problem too. And some organizations are still mailing out 1099s. They're not doing paperless, and the 1099 should match that address too, and your driver's license. Now, if you set this up right before you leave, then if something happens and a bank requires an address, then you can send them your front back of your driver's license. And then once in a while, they may be required, or if they're not now, someday the government might be required to mail something to you once a year, even though you have an account, and it'll get opened by your friend and sent to you. And then you won't have a situation where banks are just randomly shutting down accounts. Now, So before you leave, you change your driver's license and contact all of the people that send you snail mail and give them the new street mailing address and put in a forwarding address before you leave. And that should set everything with the post office to the new address. Now, I also give information about, more detail about all this in my free ebook, How I Fired My Boss and Traveled the World for 14 Years. Make sure to read that, and also, again, read the banking report. Okay, how to get your American phone numbers to ring on your smartphone without paying international rates. So your smartphones, first of all, you want to get your phone unlocked. If you're from America, I think it's one of the only countries left that still allow service providers to lock phones. I might be wrong, but check and make sure that with your provider, no matter where you are in the world, that your phone's unlocked. And then when you go into a new country, you want to, when you arrive at the airport or when you first cross over into a country, you want to get a local SIM card. Now, you don't care so much whether that SIM card gives you a local phone number or not. What you really want is the data. Now, the reason you want the data is that much of the world has gone to applications like Skype, WhatsApp. There are others. Those are the two biggies. And the way they work is that you have an application on your phone, and when somebody calls that phone number, it rings on your phone. It does not ring on the local phone number. It rings on the app on the phone. And so all you need is the data when you go to a country. So in my free ebook, it explains how you take your old phone number you've had for 20 years and you port that to Google Voice. And then if somebody calls it, Google Voice rings on your phone. And it also explains how you need to have, in order to port it to Google Voice, you need to have another number that you use, which I suggest using Skype in for. But all that's on my free ebook. But once you come into a country and you buy a SIM card that has data and you slide that into the phone, your local applications which includes WhatsApp and Skype, are going to work. You're going to be able to make phone calls from your computer and from your phone. And when people call you, they'll be able to, you can answer it on your smartphone. They're not calling the foreign number. They're calling your original number, and explains how to do that in the free ebook. Okay. When you're walking down the street in a foreign country and you see a phone number, you'll often see the little WhatsApp symbol, which is like a green circle with a phone in the middle of it. And what that means is that they have WhatsApp too. And so you don't have to call the focal number. You can just insert in your contacts that phone number and the name, and then you go to WhatsApp and you can send them a text message. Now, they may not speak English, so you go to Google Translate, you write whatever you want to say in English, you translate it into the local language, you copy that, and then you paste it in the WhatsApp application, and now you're communicating with people in their language. And so that's how you communicate with locals via text, like if you want, which is the next subject, which is how to get a local style apartment that's cheaper than an Airbnb. Airbnb rates in some parts of the world have gone through the roof. And so you really don't want to rent for a month using Airbnb anymore. But what you'll find is there's still people that are, for whatever reason, so far everywhere that we go, they're dealing local. In other words, they'll have a sign. You'll walk the neighborhoods you like and you'll see signs for rent, and you can text them in their local language, and you can go inside, and it's not unusual for them to be furnished and for them to be much, much, much cheaper than what you're going to find on Airbnb. And so I have a report about that too. That's also at the link. A link to that report about how to find the best apartments around the world is also there. So so those are some of the questions that I received lately, and these are good tricks and tips if you're going to slow travel the world. And so thanks for listening to the biggest problems that slow travelers face. Hey, if you liked our video, please like, comment, or subscribe. Any of that would help our business. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Click the link in the notes below this video to get a copy of this content. Plus, grab a free copy of my ebook, How I Fired My Boss and Traveled the World for 13 Years.
While you're there, check out our catalog of retired cheap reports all over the world and our hobby income course that we just released. Thanks so much.